Richard II by William Shakespeare, adapted by Taylor Phillips.
Yay!
Playing King Richard. State your name, King Richard.
Thomas Grube.
Playing Henry Bolingbroke.
Marty Goldberg.
Playing the Duke of York.
Michael Janove.
Playing John Gaunt, AUMERLE, a Welsh captain and York's servant.
Joseph Jones.
Playing Greene and the Bishop of Carlisle.
Valerie O'Hara.
Playing the Queen, Lord Willoughby, Sir Stephen Scroop.
David Mackler.
I'm so excited.
You're playing the Queen.
Playing Henry Hotspur Percy and Thomas Mowbray.
Mira Singer.
Playing Northumberland and the Jailer.
I'm Kane.
Playing the Duchess of York, the Lady in Waiting to the Queen, Bushy.
Bushy.
The Abbot of Westminster.
Liz.
Playing Lord.
I'll have another hat for those people, the other people.
Playing Lord Ross, Salisbury.
Gentlemen playing men's roles and men playing women's roles. I don't know.
I wanted to be the Queen.
Playing Lord Ross, Salisbury, and the Gardener.
They're not both, y'all.
Playing the Duchess of Gloucester, Lord Marshal, BAGOT. Gloucester. He always corrects me. The garden servant, Willoughby's servant.
Hey, Lynne.
I love you, Bird. Playing. That's it. Everybody's accounted for. We will read the play. Act 1, Scene 1, London. King Richard II's palace. Enter King Richard, John of Gaunt, with other nobles and attendants.
Oh, John of Gaunt, time-honoured Lancaster, hast thou, according to thy oath and bond, brought hither Henry Hereford, thy bold son, here to make good the boisterous late appeal against the Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Mowbray?
I have, my liege.
Tell me, moreover, hast thou sounded him if he appealed the Duke on ancient malice, or worthily, as a good subject should, on some known ground of treachery?
As near as I could sift him on that argument, on some apparent danger seen in him aimed at your highness, no inveterate malice.
Then call them to our presence. Face to face and frowning brow to brow, ourselves will hear the accuser, and the accused freely speak. High stomached are they both, and full of ire, enraged, deaf as the sea, hasty as fire.
Enter Henry Bolingbroke, the Duke of Hereford, and Thomas Mowbray, the Duke of Norfolk.
Many years of happy days before my gracious sovereign, my most loving liege.
Each day still better others' happiness, until the heavens, envying earth's good hap, and add an immortal title to your crown.
We thank you both, yet one but flatters us, as well appeareth by the cause you come, namely to appeal each other of high treason. Cousin of Hereford, what dost thou object against the Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Mowbray?
First, heaven be this record to my speech, in the devotion of a subject's love, during the precious safety of my prince, and free from other misbegotten hate. Come I, appellant to this princely presence. Now, Thomas Mowbray, do I turn to thee and mark my greeting well, for what I speak my body shall make good upon this earth, or my divine soul answer it in heaven. Thou art a traitor and a miscreant, too good to be so, and too bad to live. Once more, the more to aggravate the note. With a foul traitor's name stuff I thy throat, and wish, so please my sovereign, ere I move, what my tongue speaks, my right drawn sword may prove.
Let not my cold words here accuse my zeal. The blood is hot that must be cooled for this. Yet can I not of such tame patience boast as to be hushed and not at all to say. First, the fair reverence of your highness curbs me from giving reins and spurs to my free speech, which else would post until it had returned these terms of treason doubled down his throat. Setting aside his high blood's royalty, and let him be no kinsman to my liege, I do defy him, and I spit at him. Call him a slanderous coward and a villain, which to maintain I would allow him odds and meet him were I tied to run afoot, even to the frozen ridges of the Alps, or any other ground inhabitable, wherever Englishman durst set his foot. Meantime, let this defend my loyalty. By all my hopes most falsely doth he lie.
Bolingbroke throws down a gauge.
Hail, trembling coward. There, I throw my gauge, disclaiming here the kindred of the king, and lay aside my high blood's royalty, which fear, not reverence, makes thee to accept. If guilty dread have left thee so much strength as to take up mine's honor's pawn, then stoop. By that and all the rights of knighthood else will I make good against thee, arm to arm. What I have spoke, or thou canst worst devise.
Mowbray picks up the gauge.
I take it up, and by that sword I swear, which gently laid my knighthood on my shoulder, I'll answer thee in any fair degree or chivalrous design of knightly trial. And when I mount, alive may I not light, if I be traitor or unjustly fight.
What dost our cousin lay to Mowbray's charge?
Look what I speak. My life shall prove it true, that Mowbray hath received 8,000 nobles in the name of lendings from your highness's soldiers, for which he hath detained for lewd employments, like a false traitor and injurious villain. Besides, I say, and will in battle prove, or here or elsewhere, to the furthest verge, that ever was surveyed by English eye, that all the treasons for these 18 years, complotted and contrived in this land, fetch from false Mowbray their first head and spring. Further, I say, and further will maintain upon his bad life to make all this good, that he did plot the Duke of Gloucester's death, suggest his soon believing adversaries, and consequently, like a traitor coward, sluiced out his innocent soul through streams of blood, which blood, like sacrificing Abel's, cries even from the tongueless caverns of the earth to me for justice and rough chastisement. And by the glorious worth of my descent, this arm shall do it, or this life be spent.
Oh, let my sovereign turn away his face, and bid his ears a little while be deaf, till I have told this slander of his blood, how God and good men hate so foul a liar.
Mowbray, impartial are our eyes and ears. Were he my brother, nay, my kingdom's heir, as he is but my father's brother's son, now by my scepter's oar I make a vow. Such neighbor nearness to our sacred blood should nothing privilege him, nor partialize the unstooping firmness of my upright soul. He is our subject, Mowbray, so art thou. Free speech and fearless I to thee allow.
Then, Bolingbroke, as low as to thy heart, through the false passage of thy throat, thou liest. 3 parts of that receipt I had for Calais, dispersed I duly to his highness soldiers. The other part reserved I by consent, for that my sovereign liege was in my debt, upon remainder of a dear account, since last I went to France to fetch his queen. Now swallow down that lie. For Gloucester's death, I slew him not, but to my own disgrace neglected my sworn duty in that case. For you, my noble lord of Lancaster, the honorable father to my foe, once did I lay in ambush for your life, a trespass that doth vex my grieved soul. But ere I last received the sacrament, I did confess it, and exactly begged your grace's pardon, and I hope I had it. This is my fault, and for the rest appealed it issues from the rancor of a villain, a recreant and most degenerate traitor, which in myself I boldly will defend, and interchangeably hurl down my gage upon this overweening traitor's foot.
Mowbray throws down his gauge, which Bolingbroke picks up.
Wrath kindled, gentlemen, be ruled by me. Let's not purge this collar without letting blood. This we prescribe, though no physician, Deep malice makes too deep incision. Forget, forgive, conclude, and be agreed. Our doctors say this is no month to bleed. A good uncle, let this end where it begun. We'll calm the Duke of Norfolk, you, your son.
Unmute. Unmute.
Oh, John of Gaunt, are you there?
To make peace should become my age. Throw down my son, the Duke of Norfolk's gage.
And Norfolk, throw down his.
Myself I throw, dread sovereign, at thy foot. My life thou shalt command, but not my shame. I am disgraced, impeached, and baffled here, pierced to the soul with slander's venom's spear, the which no balm can cure but his heart blood, which breathed this poison.
Rage must be withstood. Give me his gage. Lions make leopards shame.
Yea, but not change his spots. Take but my shame, and I resign my gage. My dear, dear lord, the purest treasure mortal times afford is spotless reputation. Mine honor is my life, both grow in one. Take honor from me, and my life is done. Then, dear my liege, mine honor let me try. In that I live, and for that will I die.
Cousin, throw up your gage. Do you begin?
O God, defend my soul from such deep sin. Shall I seem crestfallen in my father's sight, or with pale beggar fear impeach my height before this outdared dastard, ere my tongue shall wound my honor with such feeble wrong, or sound so base a parley, my teeth shall tear the slavish motive of recanting fear and spit it bleeding in his high disgrace. Where shame doth harbor, even in Mowbray's face.
We were not born to sow, but to command, which, since we cannot do to make you friends, be ready, as your lives shall answer it, at Coventry upon St. Lambert's Day. There shall your swords and lances arbitrate the swelling difference of your settled hate. Since we cannot atone you, we shall see justice design the victor's chivalry.
Exeunt. Scene 2. The Duke of Lancaster's palace. Enter Gaunt with the Duchess
Gloucester.
of Gloucester.
Alas, the part I had in Woodstock's blood doth more solicit me than, or exclaims, to stir against the butchers of his life. But since correction lieth in those hands, which made the faults that we cannot correct, put us to quarrel to the will of heaven, who, when they see the hours ripe on earth, will rain hot vengeance on offenders' heads.
Finds brotherhood in thee no sharper spur? Hath love in thy old blood no living fire? Edward's 7 sons, whereof thyself art one, were as 7 vials of his sacred blood, or 7 fair branches springing from one root. Some of those 7 are dried by nature's course. Some of those branches by the destinies cut, but Thomas, my dear lord, my life, my Gloucester, 1 vial full of Edward's sacred blood, 1 flourishing branch of his most royal root is cracked, and all the precious liquor spilt, is hacked down, and his summer leaves all faded by envy's hand and murder's bloody axe. Oh, Gaunt, his blood was thine. That bed, that womb, that metal, that self-mold that fashioned thee, made him a man. And though thou livest and breathest, yet art thou slain in him. Thou dost consent in some large measure to thy father's death, and that thou seest thy wretched brother die, who was the model of thy father's life. Call it not patience, Gaunt. It is despair. In suffering thus thy brother to be slaughtered, thou showest the naked pathway to thy life, teaching stern murder how to butcher thee. That which in mean men we entitle patience is pale, cold cowardice in noble breast. What shall I say? To safeguard thine own life, the best way is to venge my Gloucester's death.
God's is the quarrel for God's substitute. His deputy and knight in his sight hath caused this death, which, if wrongful, let heaven revenge, for I may never lift an angry arm against his minister.
Where, then, alas, may I complain myself?
To God, the widow's champion of defense.
Why, then, I will. Farewell, old Gaunt. Thou goest to Coventry, there to behold our cousin Hereford and fell Mowbray fight. Oh, sit my husband's wrongs in Hereford's spear, that it may enter butchered Mowbray's breast.
Sister, farewell. I must to Coventry, as much good stay with thee as go with me.
Exeunt. Scene 3, the jousting fields at Coventry. The trumpets sound, and King Richard enters with his nobles, including Gaunt, the Duke of AUMERLE, Lord Marshal, and others. When they are set in the stands, enter Mowbray in arms, defendant before them.
In God's name and the king's, say who thou art, and why thou comest thus knightly clad in arms, against what man thou comest, and what they quarrel. Speak truly on thy knighthood and thy oath, and so defend thee heaven and thy valor.
My name is Thomas Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, who hither come engaged by my oath, which God defend a knight should violate, both to defend my loyalty and truth to God, my king, and my succeeding issue, against the Duke of Hereford that appeals me, and by the grace of God and this mine arm, to prove him, in defending of myself, a traitor to my God, my king, and me. And as I truly fight, defend me heaven.
The trumpets sound, and to Bolingbroke, appellate in armor before them.
What is thy name? And wherefore thou comest hither? Before King Richard and his royalists? Against whom comest thou? And what's thy quarrel? Speak like a true knight, so defend thee heaven.
Harry of Hereford, Lancaster, and Derby am I, who ready here do stand in arms to prove, by God's grace, am my body's valor in lists on Thomas Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, that he is a traitor foul and dangerous to God of heaven, King Richard, and to me, and as I truly fight, defend me heaven.
On pain of death, no person be so bold or daring hardy as to touch the list, except the marshal, and such officers appointed to direct these fair designs.
Lord Marshal, let me kiss my sovereign's hand and bow my knee before his majesty. For Mowbray and myself are like two men that vow a long and weary pilgrimage. Then let us take a ceremonious leave and loving farewell of our several friends.
The appellant in all duty greets your highness, and craves to kiss your hand and take his leave.
We will descend and fold him in our arms.
He embraces Bolingbroke.
Cousin of Hereford, as thy cause is right, so be thy fortune in this royal fight. Farewell, my blood, which if today thou shed, lament we may, but not revenge thee dead.
Oh, let no noble eye profane a tear for me, if I be gored with Mowbray's spear. As confident as is the falcon's flight against a bird, do I with Mowbray fight. My loving lord, I take my leave of you. O thou, the earthly author of my blood, whose youthful spirit in me regenerate, doth which a twofold vigor lift me up to reach at victory above my head, and prove unto mine armor with thy prayers, and with thy blessings steel my lance's point, that it may enter Mowbray's waxen coat, and furbish new the name of John Gaunt, even in the lusty behavior of his son.
God in his good cause make thee prosperous. Be swift like lightning in the execution, and let thy blows doubly rebound. Fall like amazing thunder on the casque of thy adverse pernicious enemy. Rouse up thy youthful blood, be valiant and live.
Mine innocence and St. George to thrive.
Most mighty liege, and my companion peers, take from my mouth a wish of happy years. As gentle and as jocund as to jest, go I to fight. Truth hath a quiet breast.
Farewell, my lord. Securely I espy virtue with valor couched in thine eye. Order the trial, Marshal, and begin.
The king and his nobles return to their seats, whispering.
Harry of Hereford, Lancaster, and Derby, receive thy lance, and God defend the right.
Marshal presents a lance to Bolingbroke.
And come hither, Thomas, Duke of Norfolk, receive thy lance, and God defend the right.
Marshal presents a lance to Mowbray.
Harry of Hereford, Lancaster, and Derby stands here for God, his sovereign, and himself, on pain to be found false and recreant, to prove the Duke of Norfolk, Thomas Mowbray, a traitor to his God, his king, and him, and dares him to set forward to the fight. Here standeth Thomas Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, on pain to be found false and recreant, both to defend himself and to prove Henry of Hereford, Lancaster, and Derby, to God his sovereign, and to him disloyal, courageously and with a free desire, attending but the signal to begin. Sound trumpets, and set forward combatants.
Trumpet sounds. King Richard throws down his water.
Stay! The king hath thrown his water down.
Let them lay by their helmets and their spears, and both return back to their chairs again. Draw near, list what with our counsel we have done, but that our kingdom's earth should not be soiled with that dear blood which it hath fostered, and for our eyes do hate the dire aspect of civil wounds ploughed up with neighbour's sword, and for we think the eagle-winged pride of sky aspiring and ambitious thoughts with rival-hating envy set on you to wake our peace, which in our country's cradle draws the sweet infant breath of gentle sleep, which so roused up with boisterous untuned drums, with harsh resounding trumpets' dreadful bray, and grating shock of wrathful iron arms might from our quiet confines fright fair peace, and make us wade even in our kindred's blood. Therefore, we banish you our territories, you, cousin Hereford, upon pain of life, till twice 5 summers have enriched our fields, shall not regret our fair dominions, but tread the stranger paths of banishment.
Your will be done. This must my comfort be. Sun that warms you here shall shine on me, and those his golden beams to you here lent shall point on me and gild my banishment.
Norfolk, for thee remains a heavier doom, which I with some unwillingness pronounce. The sly, slow hours shall not determinate the dateless limit of thy dear exile. The hopeless word of never to return, breathe I against thee upon pain of life.
A heavy sentence, my most sovereign liege, and all unlooked for from your highness' mouth. A dearer merit, not so deep a maim, as to be cast forth in the common air, have I deserved at your highness' hands. The language I have learned these 40 years, my native English, now I must forego? And now my tongue's use is to me no more than an unstringed viol or a harp. Within my mouth you have enjailed my tongue, doubly portcullis with my teeth and lips, and dull, unfeeling, barren ignorance has made my jailer to attend on me. I am too old to fawn upon a nurse, too far in years to be a pupil now. What is thy sentence then but speechless death, which robs my tongue from breathing native breath?
It boots thee not to be compassionate. After our sentence, plaining comes too late.
And as I turn me from my country's light, to dwell in solemn shades of endless night.
Mowbray starts to exit.
Return again and take an oath with thee. Lay on our royal sword your banished hands.
They place their right hands on the hilts of Richard's sword.
Swear by the duty that you owe to God, our part therein we banish with yourselves, to keep the oath that we administered. You never shall, so help you truth and God, embrace each other's love in banishment, nor shall never look upon each other's face. nor never right, regret, nor reconcile this lowering tempest of your homebred hate, nor never by advised purpose meet to plot, contrive, or complot any ill against us, our state, our subject, or our land.
I swear,
And I to keep all this.
Norfolk, so far as to mine enemy by this time, had the king permitted us, one of our souls had wandered in the air, banished this frail sepulchre of our flesh. As now our flesh is banished from this land, confess thy treasons ere thou fly the realm, since thou hast far to go. Bear not along the clogging burden of guilty soul.
No, Bolingbroke, if ever I were a traitor, my name be blotted from the book of life, and I from heaven banished as from hence. But what thou art, God, thou and I do know, and all too soon I fear the king shall rue. Farewell, my liege. Now no way can I stray, save back to England, all the world's my way.
Exit Mowbray.
Uncle, even in the glasses of thine eyes, I see thy grieved heart. Thy sad aspect hath, from the number of his banished years, plucked 4 away. 6 frozen winters spent, return with welcome home from banishment.
How long a time lies in one little word. 4 flagging winters and 4 wanton springs end in a word. Such is the breath of kings.
I think, my liege, that in regard of me, he shortens 4 years of my son's exile. But little vantage shall I reap thereby, for ere the 6 years he has to spend can change their moons and bring their times about. My oil-dried lamp and time-bewasted light shall be extinct with age and endless night. My inch of taper shall be burnt and done, and blindfolded death ne'er to let me see my son.
Thy son is banished upon good advice, whereto thy tongue a party verdict gave. Why at our justice seemst thou then to lour?
Things sweet to taste prove in digestion sour. You urge me as a judge, but I had rather you would have bid me argue like a father. Oh, had it been a stranger, not my child, to smooth his fault, I should have been more mild. A partial slander sought I to avoid, and in the sentence of my life destroyed. Alas, I looked when some of you should say I was too strict to make mine own away, but you gave me leave to my unwilling tongue against my will to do myself this wrong.
Cousin, farewell. And uncle, bid him so. 6 years we banish him, and he shall go.
Flourish. Exeunt all but Bolingbroke and Gaunt.
I have too few to take my leave of you, when the tongue's office shall be prodigal to breathe the abundant dolour of the heart.
Thy grief is but thy absence for a time.
Joy absent, grief is present for that time.
What is 6 winters? They are quickly gone.
Do men enjoy, but grief makes 1 hour 10.
Call it a travel that thou takest for pleasure.
My heart will sigh when I miscall it so, which finds it an enforced pilgrimage.
The sullen passage of thy weary steps esteem as foil wherein thou art to set the precious jewel of thy home return.
Nay, rather, every tedious stride I make will but remember me what a deal of world I wander from the jewels that I love.
All places that the eye of heaven visits are to a wise man ports and happy havens. Teach thy necessity to reason thus. There is no virtue like necessity. Think not the king did banish thee, but thou the king. Woe doth the heavier sit, where it perceives it is but faintly born. Go, say I, sent forth to purchase honor, and not the king exile thee. Or suppose devouring pestilence hangs in the air, and thou art flying to a fresher clime. Look what thy soul holds there. Imagine it, to lie that way thou goest, not whence thou comest. Suppose the singing birds bring musicians, and the grass where hun thou treadest the present strewed, the flower fair ladies in thy steps no more, than a delightful measure or a dance. For gnarling sorrow hath less power to bite that man mocks and that sets him light.
Oh, who can hold a fire in his hand by thinking of the frosty Caucasus, or cloy the hungry edge of appetite by bare imagination of a feast, or wallow naked in December snow by thinking on fantastic summer's heat? Oh no, the apprehension of the good gives but the greater feeling to the worst. Fell sorrow's tooth doth never wrangle more than when it bites, but lanceth, when he bites, but lanceth not the sore.
Come, come, my son, I'll bring thee on thy way. Had I the youth and cause, I would not stay.
Then England's ground farewell, sweet soil adieu. My mother and my nurse that bears me yet. Wherever I wander, boast of this I can, though banished, yet a true English man.
Exeunt. Scene 4, the court. Enter King Richard, with Bagot and Greene at one door, and Lord AUMERLE at another.
We did observe, cousin AUMERLE, how far brought you High Hereford on his way?
I brought High Hereford, if you call him so, but to the next highway, and there I left him.
And say, what store of parting tears were shed?
Faith, none for me.
What said our cousin when you parted with him?
Farewell. And for my heart disdain that my tongue should I so profane the word that taught me craft to counterfeit opposition of such grief. That word seemed buried in my sorrow's grave. Marry, would the word farewell had lengthened hours and added years to his short banishment, he should have had a volume of farewells, but since it would not, he had none for me.
He is our cousin, but 'tis doubts when time shall call him home from banishment, whether our kinsmen come to see his friends. Ourself and Bushy, Bagot here, and Greene observed his courtship to the common people. And he did seem to dive into their hearts with humble and familiar courtesy. What reverence he did throw away on slaves, wooing poor craftsmen with the craft of smiles and patient underbearing of his fortune, as 'twere to banish their effects with him. Off goes his bonnet to an oyster wedge. A brace of draymen bid God speed him well, and had the tribute of his supple knee. With thanks, my countrymen, my loving friends, as were our England in reversion his, and he our subjects next agreeable.
Well, he is gone, and with him go these thoughts. For now the rebels, which stand out in Ireland, expedient manage must be made, my liege, ere further leisure yield them further means for the advantage and your highness's loss.
We will ourself in person to this war, and for our coffers with too great a court and liberal largesse are grown somewhat light, we are enforced to farm our royal realm, the revenue whereof shall furnish us for our affairs in hand. If that comes short, our substitutes at home shall have blank charters, whereto when they shall know what men are rich, they shall subscribe them for large sums of gold, and send them after to supply our wants. For we will make for Ireland present.
Enter
Bushy,
Bushy.
what news?
Old John of Gaunt is grievous sick, my lord, suddenly taken, and hath spent post haste to entreat your majesty to visit him.
Where lies he?
At Ely House.
Now God put it in the physician's mind to help him to his grave immediately. The lining of his coffers shall make coats to deck our soldiers for these Irish wars. Come, gentlemen, let's all go visit him, and pray God we may make haste and come too late.
Exeunt. Act 2, Scene 1, Ely House. Enter Gaunt, sick, with the Duke of York and attendants.
Will the king come that I may breathe my last in wholesome counsel to his unstayed youth?
Not yourself, nor strive not with your breath, for all in vain comes counsel to his ear.
Oh, but they say the tongues of dying men enforce attention like deep harmony. Where words are scarce, they are seldom spent in vain, for they breathe truth and breathe their words in pain. Though Richard my life's counsel would not hear, my death's sad tale, may his undeath his heir.
No, it is stopped with other flattering sounds, as praises, of whose taste the wise are fond, lascivious meters, to whose venom sound to open ear of youth doth always listen. Where doth the world thus forth of vanity? So it be new? There's no respect how vile. That is not quickly buzz into his ears. Then all too late comes counsel to be heard, where will doth mutiny with wits regard. Direct not him whose way himself will choose, his breath thou lack'st, and that breath wilt thou lose.
Methinks I'm a prophet new inspired, and thus expiring do foretell of him. His rash fair blaze of riot cannot last, for violent fires soon burn themselves out. Small showers last long, but sudden storms are short. He tires betimes that spurs too fast betimes. With eager feeding, food doth choke the feeder. His royal throne of kings, his sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars, this other Eden, demi-paradise, this fortress built by nature for herself, against infection and the hand of war, this happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone set in the silver sea. This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England, this nurse, this teeming womb of royal kings, fared by their breed and famous by their birth, renowned for their deeds as far from home, for Christian service and true chivalry, as the sepulchre in stubborn Jewry. For the world's ransom, blessed Mary's son, this land of such dear souls, this dear, dear land, dear for her reputation through the world, is now leased out. I die pronouncing it. England bound in the triumphant sea, whose rocky shores beat back the incisive siege of watery Neptune, is now bound in with shame, with inky blots and rotten parchment bounds. That England that was wont to conquer others hath made a shameful conquest of itself. Ah, would the scandal vanish with my love? How happy we were then with my ensuing death.
Enter King Richard, AUMERLE, Bushy, Greene, Bagot, Lord Ross, and Lord Willoughby.
The king is come. He'll mildly with his youth, for young hot colts being raged enrage the more.
But comfort, man, how is it with aged Gaunt?
Oh, how that name befits my composition. Old Gaunt indeed, Gaunt in being old. Within me my grief hath kept a tedious fast, and who abstains from meat that is not gaunt? For sleeping England long time have I watched. Watching breeds leanness. Leanness is all gaunt. The pleasure that some fathers feed upon is my strict fast. I mean my children's looks. And therein fasting hast thou made me gaunt. Gaunt am I for the grave, gaunt as a grave, whose hollow womb inherits naught but bones.
Can sick men play so nicely with their names?
No, misery makes sport to mock itself. Since thou dost seek to kill my name in me, I mock my name, great king, to flatter thee.
Should dying men flatter with those that live?
No, no, men living flatter those that die.
Thou, now a dying, sayest thou flatterest me.
Oh no, thou diest, though I sicker be.
I am in health, I breathe and see thee ill.
Now he has made me knows I see thee ill, ill I myself to see, and in thee seeing ill, thy deathbed is no lesser than my land, wherein thou liest in reputation sick, and thou, too careless patient as thou art, committest thy anointed body to the cure of those physicians that first wound thee. 1,000 fowlers will sit with thy crown, whose compass is no bigger than thy head, and yet encaged in so small a verge, thou waste is no whit lesser than thy hand. And had thy grandsire with a prophet's eye seen how his son's son should destroy his sons, from forth he would reach and had lain thy shame, disposing thee before thou went possessed, which art possessed now to decompose myself. My cousin, wert thou regent of the world, if were ashamed to let this land by lease, but thy world enjoying but this land is not more, for then shame to shame is so. Landlord of England art thou now, not king. Thy state of law is bondslave to the law, and thou
a lunatic, lean-witted fool, presuming on an ague's privilege. Now, by my seat's right royal majesty, wert thou not brother to great Edward's son, this tongue that runs so roundly in thy head should run thy head from thy unreverent shoulders.
Oh, spare me not my brother Edward's son, for that I were his father's Edward's son, that blood already like a pelican. Hast thou tapped out and drunkenly crossed my brother Gloucester, plain well-meaning soul, whom fair befell in heaven amongst happy souls, may be a precedent and witness good, that thou respect not spilling Edward's blood. Join with the present sickness that I have in thou unkindness. Be like a crooked age to crop up at once too long withered flower. Live in thy shame, but die not shame with thee. These words hereafter thy tormentors be. Convey me to my bed, then to my grave. Love they to live that love and honor have.
Exit Gaunt, carried by his attendants.
Let them die that age and sullens have, for both hast thou, and both become the grave.
I do beseech your majesty, impute his words to wayward sickliness and age in him. He loves you on my life, and holds you dear, as Harry, Duke of Hereford, were he here.
Right, you say true. As Hereford's love, so his. As theirs, so mine, and all be as it is.
Enter Northumberland.
My liege, old Gaunt commends him to your majesty.
What says he?
Nay, nothing. All is said. His tongue is now a stringless instrument. Words, life, and all, old Lancaster hath spent.
So much for that. Now for our Irish wars. We must supplant those rough, rug-headed kern, and for these great affairs do ask some charge. Towards our assistance, we do seize to us the plate, coin, revenues, and movables whereof our uncle Gaunt did stand possessed.
How long shall I be patient? How long shall tender duty make me suffer wrong? Not Gloucester's death, not Hereford's banishment, nor Gaunt's rebukes, nor England's private wrongs, nor the prevention of poor Bolingbroke about his marriage, nor my own disgrace, have ever made me sour my patient cheek, or bend one wrinkle on my sovereign's face. I am the last of noble Edward's sons, of whom thy father, Prince of Wales, was first. In war was never lion raged more fierce. In peace was never gentle lamb more mild. Then was that young and princely gentleman, his face thou hast, for even so looked he, accomplished with the numbers of thy hours. But when he frowned, it was against the French, not against his friends. His noble hand did what he didn't spend, and spent not that which his triumphant's father's hand had won. His hands were guilty of no kindred blood, but bloody with the enemies of his kin. Oh, Richard, York is too far gone with grief.
Why, uncle, what's the matter?
Oh, my liege, pardon me, if you please. If not, I please not to be pardoned, am content with all. Seek you to seize and grip into your hands the royalties and rights of banished Hereford. Is not Gaunt dead? And doth not Hereford live? Was not Gaunt just? And is not Harry true? Did not the one deserve to have an heir? Is not their heir a well-deserving son? Take Hereford's rights away, and take from time his charters and his customs rights. Let not tomorrow then ensue today. Be not thyself, for how art thou a king but by fair sequence and succession? Now, afore God, God forbid I say true, if you do wrongly seize Hereford's rights, call in the letters patent that he hath by attorneys general to sue his livery, and desire his offered homage. You pluck 1,000 dangers on your head, you lose 1,000 well-disposed hearts, and prick my tender patience to those thoughts which honor and allegiance cannot think.
Think what ye will, we seize into our hands his plate, his goods, his money, and his lands.
I'll not be by thy wile. My liege, farewell. What will ensue hereof, there's none can tell. But by bad courses may be understood their offense. Events can never fall out good.
Exit York.
We will for Ireland, and 'tis time, I trow. And we create in absence of ourself our uncle York, Lord Governor of England, for he is just and always loved us well. Tomorrow we must part.
Flourish. Exeunt all but Northumberland, Willoughby, and Ross.
Well, lords, the Duke of Lancaster is dead.
And living too, for now his son is Duke.
Barely in title, not in revenue.
Richly in both, if justice had her right. Now, 'fore God, 'tis shame such wrongs are born in him, a royal prince, and many more, of noble blood in this declining land. The king is not himself, but basely led by flatterers.
The commons hath he pilled with grievous taxes, and quite lost their hearts. The nobles hath he fined for ancient quarrels, and quite lost their hearts.
And daily new exactions are devised as blanks, benevolences, and I wot not what. But what in God's name doth become of this?
Wars have not wasted it, for ward he hath not, but basely yielded upon compromise that which his noble ancestors achieved with blows. More hath he spent in peace than they in wars.
The king's grown bankrupt like a broken man.
Reproach and dissolution hangeth over him.
He hath not money for these Irish wars, his burdenous taxations notwithstanding, but by the robbing of the banished Duke.
His noble kinsman, most degenerate king. But lords, we hear this fearful tempest sing, yet see no shelter to avoid the storm. We see the wind sit sore upon our sails, and yet we strike not, but securely perish.
We see the very wreck that we must suffer, and unavoided is the danger now, for suffering so the causes of our wreck.
Not so, even though through the hollow eyes of death I spy life peering, but I dare not say how near the tidings of our comfort is.
Be confident to speak, Northumberland. We three are but thyself, and speaking so, thy words are but as thoughts. Therefore, be bold.
Then thus, I have from Le Port Blanc, a bay in Brittany, received intelligence that Harry, Duke of Hereford, Raynoid Lord Cobham, the late broke from the Duke of Exeter, his brother, Archbishop late of Canterbury, Sir Thomas Eppingham, Sir John Ramsden, Sir John Norbury, Sir Robert Waterton, and Francis Quant, all these well furnished by the Duke of Brittany, with 8 tall ships, 3,000 men of war, are making hither with all due expedience, and shortly mean to touch our northern shore. Perhaps they had ere this, but that they stay the first departing of the king for Ireland, if then we shall shake off our slavish yoke, limp out of our drooping countries, broken wing, redeem from broken pawn the blemished crown, wipe off the dust that hides our scepter's guilt, and make high majesty look like itself. Away with me in post to Ravensford, but if you faint, as fearing to do so, stay and be secret, and myself will go.
To horse, to horse! Urge doubts to them that fear.
Hold out my horse, and I will first be there.
Exeunt. Scene 2, the palace. Enter Queen, Bushy, and Bagot.
Oh, madam. Madam. I'm coming, madam. Madam, your majesty is too much sad. You promised, when you parted with the king, to lay aside life-harming heaviness and entertain a cheerful disposition.
To please the king I did. To please myself, I cannot do it. Yet I know no cause why I should welcome such a guest as grief, save bidding farewell to so sweet a guest as my sweet Richard. Yet again methinks some unborn sorrow ripe in fortune's womb is coming towards me, and my inward soul with nothing trembles. At something it grieves more than with parting from my lord the king.
Looking awry upon your lord's departure, find shapes of grief more than himself to wail, which, looked on as it is not but shadows of what is not. Then, thrice gracious queen, more than your lord's departure weep not. More is not seen, or if it be, 'tis with false sorrow's eye, which for things true weeps things imaginary.
It may be so, but yet my inward soul persuades me it is otherwise.
'Tis nothing but conceit, my gracious lady.
'Tis nothing less. Conceit is still derived from some forefather grief. Mine is not so, for nothing had begotten my something grief, or something hath the nothing that I grieve. 'Tis in reversion that I do possess, but what it is that is not yet known what, I cannot name. 'Tis nameless woe, I wot.
Enter Greene.
God save your majesty. And well met, gentlemen. I hope the king is not yet shipped for Ireland.
Why hopest thou so? 'Tis better hope he is, for his designs crave haste. His haste good hope. Then wherefore dost thou hope he is not shipped?
Oh, that he, our hope, might have retired his power and driven into despair an enemy's hope, who strongly hath yet footing in this land. The banished Bolingbroke repeals himself, and with uplifted arms is safe arrived at Ravensburg.
Now God in heaven forbid!
Ah, madam, 'tis too true. And what is more, the Lord Northumberland, his young son Harry Percy, the lords of Ross, Beaumont, and Willoughby, with all their powerful friends, are fled to him.
So, Greene, thou art the midwife to my woe, and Bolingbroke my sorrow's dismal heir.
Despair not, madam.
Who shall hinder me? I will despair, and be at enmity with cozening hope. He is a flatterer, a parasite, a keeper back of death, who gently would dissolve the bands of life which false hope lingers in extremity.
Enter York.
Here comes the Duke of York,
with signs of war about his aged neck. Oh, full of careful business are his looks. Uncle, for God's sake, speak comfortable words.
Should I do so, I should belay my thoughts. Comfort's in heaven, and we are on the earth, where nothing lives but crosses, cares, and grief. Your husband he is gone to save far off, whilst others come to make him lose at home. Here am I left to underprop his land, who, weak with age, cannot support himself. Now comes the sick hour that his surface made. Now shall he try his friends that flattered him.
Enter York's servant.
My lord, your son was gone before I came.
Was? Why? So go all which way it will. The nobles, they are fled. The commons, they are cold. Then will, I fear, revolt on Hereford's side. Sirrah, get thee to Plassey, to my sister Gloucester. Bid her send me presently £1,000.
My lord, today as I came by, I called there, but I shall grieve you to report the rest.
What is it, knave?
An hour before I came, the Duchess died.
God for his mercy. What a tide of woes come rushing on this woeful land at once. I know not what to do. I would to God so my untruth have not provoked him to it. The king had cut off my head with my brothers. What? Are there no posts dispatched for Ireland? How shall we do for money for these wars? Go, fellow, get thee home, provide some carts, and bring away the armor that is there.
Exit York servant.
Gentlemen, will you go muster men? If I know how or which way to order these affairs, thus thrust disorderly into my hands, never believe me. Both are my kinsmen, the one my sovereign, whom both my oath and duty bids defend, the other again is my kinsman, who the king hath wronged, whom conscience and my kindred bids to right. Well, somewhat we must do. Come, cousin, I'll dispose of you. Gentlemen, go muster up your men and meet me at the Berkeley.
Exeunt Duke of York and Queen.
The wind sits fair for news to go to Ireland, but none returns. For us to levy power proportionate to the enemy is all unpossible.
Besides, our nearest to the king in love is near the hate of those love not the king.
And that's the wavering commons, for their love lies in their purses, and whoso empties them by so much fills their hearts with deadly hate.
Wherein the king stands generally condemned.
If judgment lie in them, then so do we, because we ever have been near the king.
Well, I will for refuge straight to Bristol Castle.
Thither will I with you, for little office the hateful commons will perform for us, except like curs to tear us all to pieces. Will you go along with us?
No, I will to Ireland to his majesty. Farewell. If heart's presages be not vain, we three here art that ne'er shall meet again.
That says York thrives to beat back Bolingbroke.
Alas, poor Duke, the task he undertakes is numbering sands and drinking oceans dry. Where one of his side fights, thousands will fly. Farewell at once, for all and ever.
Well, we may meet again.
I fear me never.
Exeunt. Scene 3. Enter Bolingbroke, Northumberland, with forces.
How far is it, my lord, to Berkeley now?
Believe me, noble lord, I am a stranger here in Gloucestershire. These high wild hills and rough uneven ways draws out our miles and makes them wearisome. And yet your fair discourse hath been as sugar, making the hard ways sweet and delectable. But I bethink me what a weary way from Ravensburg to Cotshall will be found by Ross and Willoughby, wanting your company, which I protest hath very much beguiled the tediousness and process of my travel, and has made the way seem short.
Of much less value is my company than your good words. But who comes here?
Enter Henry Percy.
It is my son, young Harry Percy, sent from my brother Worcester. whensoever. Harry, how fares your uncle?
I had thought, my lord, to have learned his health from you.
Why, is he not with the Queen?
No, my good lord, he hath forsook the court, broken his staff of office, and dispersed the household of the king.
What was his reason? He was not so resolved when last we spake together.
Because your lordship was proclaimed traitor. But he, my lord, is gone to Ravensburg to offer service to the Duke of Hereford, and send me over by Berkeley to discover what power the Duke of York had levied there, then with directions to repair to Ravensburg.
Have you forgot the Duke of Hereford, boy?
No, my good lord, but that is not forgot which ne'er I did remember. To my knowledge, I never in my life did look on him.
Then learn to know him now. This is the Duke.
My gracious lord, I tender you my service, so such it is, being tender, raw, and young, which elder days shall ripen and confirm to more proved service.
I thank thee, gentle Percy, and be sure I count myself in nothing less so happy as in a soul remembering my good friends. And as my fortune ripens with thy love, it shall be still thy true love's recompense. My heart this covenant makes, my hand thus seals it.
They shake hands.
How far is it to Berkeley, and what, sir, keeps a good old York there with his men of war?
There stands the castle by yon tops of trees, manned with 300 men, as I have heard, and in it are the lords of York, Berkeley, and Seymour, none else of name and noble estimate.
Enter Ross and Willoughby.
Here come the lords of Ross and Willoughby, bloody with spurring, fiery red with haste.
Welcome, my lords. I watch your love pursues a banished traitor. All my treasury is yet but unfelt thanks, which more enriched shall be your love and labor's recompense.
Your presence makes us rich, most noble lord.
And far surmounts our labor to attain it.
Evermore thanks the exchequer of the poor, which, till my infant fortune comes to years, stands for my bounty. But who comes here?
Enter York, attended, Bolingbroke kneels.
Here comes his grace in person, my noble uncle.
Show me thy humble heart, and not thy knee, whose duty is deceivable and false.
My gracious uncle.
Tut, tut. Grace me no grace, nor uncle me no uncle. I am no traitor's uncle, and that word grace in an ungracious mouth is but profane. I have those banished and forbidden legs dared once to touch a dust of England's ground. But then, more why? Why have they dared to march so many miles upon her peaceful bosom, frightening her pale-faced villages with war and ostentatious of despised arms? Comest thou because the anointed king is hence? Why, fool boy? The king is left behind, and in my royal bosom lies his power. Were I but now the lord of such hot youth, as when brave Gaunt, thy father, and myself rescued the Black Prince, that young Mars of men, from forth the ranks of many thousand French. Oh, then how quickly should their arm of mine, now prisoner to the palsy, chastise thee and minister correction to thy fault.
As I was banished Hereford. But as I come for Lancaster. And, noble uncle, I beseech your grace, look on my wrongs with an indifferent eye. You are my father, for methinks in you I see old Gaunt alive. Oh then, my father, will you permit that I shall stand condemned, a wandering vagabond, my rights and royalties plucked from my arms perforce and given away to upstart unthrifts? Wherefore was I born? If that my cousin king be king of England, it must be granted I am Duke of Lancaster. You have a son, AUMERLE, my noble cousin. Had you first died and he been thus trod down, he should have found his uncle Gaunt, a father, to rouse his wrongs and chase them to the bay. I am denied to sue my livery here, and yet my letters patents give me leave. My father's goods are all distrained and sold. and these and all are all amiss employed. What would you have me do? I am a subject, and I challenge the law. Attorneys are denied me, and therefore personally I lay my claim to my inheritance of free descent.
The noble Duke hath been too much abused.
It stands upon your grace to do him right.
Base men by his endowments are made great.
My lords of England, let me tell you this. I have had feeling of my cousin's wrongs and labored all I could to do him right. But in this kind to come, in braving arms, be his own carver and cut out his way to find out right with wrong, it may not be. And you, that you do abet him in this kind cherished rebellion, and are rebels all.
The noble Duke hath sworn his coming is but for his own and for the right of that we all have strongly sworn to give him aid, and let him ne'er see joy that breaks that oath.
Well, well, I see the issue of these arms. I cannot mend it. I must needs confess, because my power is weak and all ill left. But if I could by him that gave me life, I would attach you all and make you stoop upon the sovereign mercy of the king. But since I cannot, be it known unto you, I shall remain as neuter. So, fare you well, unless you please to enter in the castle and there repose you for this night.
And offer, uncle, that we will accept, but we must win your grace to go with us to Bristol Castle, which they say is held by Bushy, Bagot, and their accomplices, the caterpillars of the Commonwealth, which I have sworn to weed and pluck away.
It may be I will go with you, but yet I'll pause, for I am loath to break our country's laws. Nor friends, nor foes, to me welcome you are. Things past redress are now with me past care.
Exeunt. Scene 4, a camp in Wales. Enter the Earl of Salisbury and Welsh captain.
Stay yet another day, thou trusty Welshman. The king reposeth all his confidence in thee.
My lord of Salisbury, we have stayed 10 days and hardly kept our countrymen together, and yet we hear no tidings from the king. 'Tis thought the king is dead. We will not stay. The bay trees in our country are all withered, and meteors fright the fixed stars of heaven. The pale-faced moon looks bloody on the earth, and lean looks prophets whispered fearful change. These signs forerun the death and fall of kings. Farewell, our countrymen are gone and fled, as well rest assured Richard their king is dead.
Exit Welsh captain.
Richard, with the eyes of heavy mind, I see thy glory like a shooting star fall to the base earth from the firmament. Thy sun sets weeping in the lowly west, witnessing storms to come, woe and unrest. Thy friends are fled to wait upon thy foes, and crossly to thy good all fortune goes.
Exit Salisbury. Act 3, Scene 1. Bristol, before the castle. Enter Bolingbroke, York, Northumberland, Ross, Percy, Willoughby, with Bushy and Greene as prisoners.
Bring forth these men. Bushy and Greene, I will not vex your souls, since presently your souls must part your bodies, with too much urging your pernicious lives, for 'twere no charity, yet to wash your blood from off my hands, here in the view of men, I will unfold some causes of your deaths. You have misled a prince, a royal king, a happy gentleman in blood and lineaments, by you unhappied and disfigured clean. You have, in manner with your sinful hours, made a divorce betwixt his queen and him, broke the possession of a royal bed, and stain the beauty of a fair queen's cheeks, with tears drawn from her eyes by your foul wrongs. Myself, a prince by fortune of my birth, near to the king in blood and near in love, till you did make him misrepresent me, have stooped my neck under your injuries and sighed my English breath in foreign clouds, eating the bitter bread of banishment, while you have fed upon my seigniories, disparked my parks and felled my forest woods, from my own windows torn my household coat, raised out my impress, leaving me no sign, save men's opinions of my living blood, to show the world I am a gentleman. This and much more, and twice all this condemns you to the death. See them delivered over to the execution and the hand of death.
More welcome is a stroke of death to me than Bolingbroke to England. Lords, farewell.
My comfort is that heaven will take our souls and plague injustice with the pains of hell.
My lord Northumberland, see them dispatched.
Exeunt Northumberland and others with the prisoners.
Uncle, you say the queen is at your house. For God's sake, fairly let her be entreated. Tell her I send to her my kind commends.
A gentleman of mine I have dispatched with letters of your love of her at large.
Thank you, gentle uncle. Come, lords, away, to fight with Glendower and his complices, a while to work and after holiday.
Exeunt. Scene 2, the coast of Wales, a castle in view. Drums, flourish and colors. Enter King Richard II, the Bishop of Carlisle, the Duke of AUMERLE, and soldiers.
Hold on here, bloody good. I'm trying to get online. Hold on. All right, there it is. Okay, that's it. Grand. Barclay Castle, call they this at hand?
Yea, my lord. How brooks your grace the airs after your late tossing on the breaking seas?
Needs must I like it well. I weep for joy to stand upon my kingdom once again. Oh, dear earth, I do salute thee with my hand, though rebels wound thee with their horses' hoofs. As a long-parted mother with her child plays fondly with her tears and smiles in meeting, so weeping, smiling, greet I thee, my earth, and do thee favors with my royal hands. Feed not thy sovereign foe, my gentle earth. Yield stinging nettles to mine enemies, and when they from thy bosom pluck a flower, guard it, I pray thee, with a lurking adder, whose double tongue may with a mortal touch throw death upon thy sovereign's enemies. Ooh, mark not my senseless conjuration, lords. This earth shall have a feeling, and these stones, proved armored soldiers ere her native king should falter under foul rebellion's arms.
Fear not, my lord. That power that hath made you king hath power to keep you king in spite of all. The means that heaven yields must be embraced and not neglected, else heaven would, and we will not. Heaven's offer we refuse, the proffered means of succor and redress.
He means, my lord, that we are too remiss, whilst Bolingbroke through our security grows strong and great in substance and in power.
Discomfortable cousin, knowst thou not, that when the searching eye of heaven is hid behind the globe that lights the lower world, then thieves and robbers range abroad unseen in murders and in outrage boldly here. But when from under this terrestrial ball he fires the proud tops of the eastern pines and darts his light through every guilty hole, then murders, treasons, and detested sins, the cloak of night being plucked from off their backs, stand bare and naked, trembling at themselves. So, when this thief, this traitor Bolingbroke, whom all this while hath revelled in the night whilst we were wandering with the Antipodes, shall see us rising in our throne the east, His treasons will sit blushing in his face, not able to endure the sight of day, but self-affrighted tremble at his sin. Not all the water in the rough rude sea can wash the balm from an anointed king. The breath of worldly men cannot depose the deputy elected by the Lord. But every man that Bolingbroke hath pressed to lift true steel against our golden crown, God, for his riches, hath in heavenly pay a glorious angel. Then angels fight. Weak men must fall, for heaven still guards the right.
Enter Salisbury.
Welcome, my lord. How far off lies your power?
Not far, not near, nor farther off, my gracious lord, than this weak arm. Discomfort guides my tongue, and bids me speak of nothing but despair. One day too late, I fear me, noble lord, hath clouded all thy happy days on earth. Oh, call back yesterday, bid time return, and thou shalt have 12,000 fighting men. Today, unhappy day too late, overthrows thy joys, friends, fortune, and thy state. For all the Welshmen, hearing thou wert dead, are gone to Bolingbroke, dispersed and fled.
Comfort, my liege. Why looks your grace so pale?
But now the blood of 20,000 men did triumph in my face, and they are fled. And till so much blood thither come again, have I not reason to look pale and dead?
Comfort, my liege. Remember who you are.
I had forgot myself. Am I not king? Awake, thou coward majesty, thou sleepest. It's not the king's name, 20,000 names. On my name, a puny subject strikes at thy great glory. Look not to the ground, ye favourites of a king. Are we not high? High be our thoughts. I know my uncle York hath power enough to serve our turn. But who comes here?
Enter Sir Stephen Scroop.
More health and happiness betide my liege than can my care-tuned tongue deliver him.
Mine ear is open and my heart prepared. The worst is worldly loss thou canst unfold. Say, is my kingdom lost? Why, 'twas my care, and what loss is it be rid of care? Strives Bolingbroke to be as great as we? Greater he shall not be. If he serve God, we'll serve him too, and be his fellow so. Revolt our subjects? That we cannot mend. They break their faith to God as well as us. Cry woe, destruction, ruin, and decay. The worst is death, and death will have its day.
Glad am I that your highness is so armed to bear the tidings of calamity, like an unseasonable stormy day which makes the silver rivers drown their shores, as if the world were all dissolved to tears. So high above his limits swells the rage of Bolingbroke, covering your fearful land with hard bright steel and hearts harder than steel. Whitebeards have armed their thin and hairless scalps against thy majesty. Boys with women's voices strive to speak big and clap their female joints in stiff unwielding arms against thy crown. In stiff unwieldy arms against thy crown, yes. The very beardsmen learn to bend the bows of double fatal yew against thy state. Yea, distaff women manage rusty bills against thy seat. Both young and old rebel, and all goes worse than I have power to tell.
Too well thou tell'st a tale so ill. Where is the Earl of Wiltshire? Where is BAGOT? What has become of Bushy? Where is GREENE? That they have let the dangerous enemy measure our confines with such peaceful steps. If we prevail, their heads shall pay for it. I warrant they have made peace with Bolingbroke.
Peace have they made with him indeed, my lord.
Villains, vipers, damned without redemption. Dogs easily want to fawn on any man. 3 Judases, each one twice worse than Judas.
Their peace is made with heads and not with hands.
Was Bushy, GREENE, and the Earl of Wiltshire dead?
Aye, all of them at Bristol lost their heads.
Where is the Duke, my father, with his power? Oh, sorry, that's not my line. Sorry.
Where's the Duke, my father, with his power?
Oh, no matter where, of comfort no man speak. Let's talk of graves, of worms and epitaphs. Make dust our paper, and with rainy eyes write sorrow on the bosom of the earth. Let's choose executors and talk of wills, and yet not so. For what can we bequeath, save our deposed bodies to the ground? Our lands, our lives, and all our Bolingbroke's, and nothing can we call our own but death, and that small model of the barren earth which serves as paste and cover to our bones. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. How some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed, all murdered. For within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court, and there the antic sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene to monarchize, be feared, and kill with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit, as if this flesh which walls about our life were brass impregnable. And humoured thus, comes at the last, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall, and farewell, king. Cover your heads and mock not flesh and blood with solemn reverence. Throw away respect, tradition, form, and ceremonious duty, for you have but mistook me all this while. I live with bread like you, feel want, taste grief, need friends, subjected thus. How can you say to me, I am a king?
My lord, wise men ne'er sit and wail their woes, but presently prevent the ways to wail. To fear the foe, since fear oppresses strength, gives in your weakness strength unto your foe. And so your follies fight against yourself. Fear and be slain, or worse can come to fight. And fight and die is death destroying death. Where fearing dying pays death, servile breath.
My father hath the power. Inquire of him and learn to make a body of a limb.
Thou chidest me well. Proud Bolingbroke, I come to change blows with thee for our day of doom. This ague fit of fear is o'erblown. An easy task it is to win our own. Say, sir, where lies our uncle with his power? Speak sweetly, man, although thy looks be sour.
Men judge by the complexion of the sky, the state and inclination of the day. So may you by my dull and heavy eye. My tongue have but a heavier tale to say. Your uncle is joined with Bolingbroke, and all your northern castles yielded up, and all your southern gentlemen in arms upon his party.
Thou hast said enough. What say you now? What comfort have we now? By heaven, I'll hate him everlastingly that bids me be of comfort any more. Go to Flint Castle, there I'll pine away.
My liege, one word.
He does me double wrong that wounds me with the flatteries of his tongue. Discharge my followers, let them hence away, from Richard's night to Bolingbroke's fair day.
Exeunt. Scene 3, Wales, before Flint Castle. Enter with drum and colours, Bolingbroke, York, Northumberland, attendants and forces.
So that by this intelligence we learn the Welshmen are dispersed, and Salisbury is gone to meet the king, who lately landed with some few private friends upon this coast.
The news is very fair and good, my lord. Richard, not far from hence, hath hid his head.
It would beseem the Lord Northumberland to say King Richard. Alack, the heavy day when such a sacred king should hide his head.
Your grace mistakes. Only to be brief, left I title as his title out.
The time hath been. Would you have been so brief with him? He would have been so brief to shorten you for taking so the head, your whole head's length.
Mistake not, uncle, further than you should.
Take not, good cousin, further than you should, lest you mistake the heavens are o'er our heads.
I know it, uncle, and oppose not myself against their will.
What the hell is going on here?
But who comes here?
Enter Percy.
Welcome, Harry. What, will not this castle yield?
Castle royally is manned, my lord, against thy entrance.
Royally? Why? It contains no king.
Yes, my good lord, it doth contain a king. King Richard lies within the limits of yon Lyman stone, and with him are Lord O'Merle, Lord Salisbury, Sir Stephen Scroop, as well a clergyman of holy reverence, the Bishop of Carlisle.
What's going on?
Go to the rude ribs of that ancient castle. Through brazen trumpets send the breath of parley into his ruined ears, and thus deliver. Henry Bolingbroke on both his knees doth kiss King Richard's hand, and sends allegiance and true faith of heart to his most royal person. Hither come, even at his feet to lay my arms in power, provided that my banishment repealed, and lands restored again be freely granted. If not, I'll use the advantage of my power and lay the summer's dust with showers of blood rained from the wounds of slaughtered Englishmen. Go, signify as much, while here we march upon the grassy carpet of this plain.
Northumberland and trumpets approach the battlements.
Let's march without the noise of threatening drum, that from this castle's tattered battlements our fair appointments may be well pursued. Methinks King Richard and myself should meet with no less terror than the elements of fire and water, when their thundering shock at meeting tears the cloudy cheeks of heaven. Be he the fire, I'll be the yielding water. The rage be his, whilst on earth I reign, my waters on the earth, and not on him. March on, and mark King Richard how he looks.
Bolingbroke's soldiers march, the trumpets sound. Enter on the walls King Richard with O'Merle.
See, King Richard doth himself appear, as doth the blushing discontented sun from out the fiery portal of the east, when he perceives the envious clouds are bent to dim his glory and to stain the track of his bright passage to the Occident.
Like the king, behold his eye as bright as the eagle's, lightens forth controlling majesty. Alack for woe, that any harm should stain so fair a show.
We are amazed, and thus long have we stood to watch the fearful bending of thy knee, because we thought ourselves thy lawful king. And if we be, how dare thy joints forget to pay their awful duty to our presence? If we be not, show us the hand of God that hath dismissed us from our stewardship. For well we know no hand of blood and bone can gripe the sacred handle of our scepter, unless he do profane, steal, or usurp. And though you think that all, as you have done, have torn their souls by turning them from us, and we are barren and bereft of friends, yet know, my master, God omnipotent, is mustering in his clouds on our behalf armies of pestilence, and they shall strike your children yet unborn and unbegot, that lift your vassal hands against my head, and threat the glory of my precious crown. Tell Bolingbroke, for yon methinks he stands, that every stride he makes upon my land is dangerous treason. He is come to open the purple's testament of bleeding war, but ere the crown he looks for live in peace. 10,000 bloody crowns of mothers' sons shall ill become the flower of England's face, change her the complexion of her maid pale peace to scarlet indignation, and bedew her pastures grass with faithful English blood.
The King of Heaven forbid our Lord the King should so with civil and uncivil arms be rushed upon. Thy thrice noble cousin Harry Bolingbroke doth humbly kiss thy hand, and by thy honorable tomb he swears that stands upon your royal grandsire's bones, and by the royalties of both your bloods, currents that spring from one most gracious head, and by the buried hand of warlike Gaunt, and by the worth and honor of himself, comprising all that may be sworn or said, his coming hither hath no further scope than for his lineal royalties, and to beg enfranchisement immediate on his knees, which on thy royal party once granted once, his glittering arms he will commend to rust, his barbed steeds to stables, and his heart to faithful service of your majesty. This swears he, and he is a prince and just. As I am a gentleman, I credit him.
Northumberland, say thus the king returns. His noble cousin is right welcome hither, and all the number of his fair demands shall be accomplished without contradiction, with all the gracious utterance thou hast. Speak to his gentle hearing, kind commands.
Northumberland returns to Bolingbroke.
We do debase ourselves, cousin, do we not, to look so poorly and to speak so fair? Shall we call back Northumberland and send defiance to the traitor and so die?
No, no, good my lord. Let's fight with gentle words till time lends friends and friends their helpful swords.
Oh God, that ere this tongue of mine that laid the sentence of dread banishment on yon proud man should take it off again with words of sooth. Oh, that I were as great as is my grief, or lesser than my name, or that I could forget what I have been, or not remember what I must be now. Oh, swellest thou, proud heart, I'll give thee scope to beat, since foes have scope to beat both thee and me.
Northumberland comes back from Bolingbroke.
What must the king do now? Must he submit? The king shall do it. Must he be deposed? The king shall be contented. Must he lose the name of king? For God's name, let it go. I'll give my jewels for a set of beads, my gorgeous palace for a hermitage, my gay apparel for an almsman's gown, my figured goblets for a dish of wood, my scepter for a palmer's walking staff, my subjects for a pair of carved saints, and my large kingdom for a little grave. A little grave, an obscure grave, where I'll be buried in the king's highway, some way of common trade, where subjects' feet may hourly trample on their sovereign's head. But on my heart they tread now whilst I live, and buried once, why not upon my head? Oh, Merle, thou weepst. My tender-hearted cousin will make foul weather with despised tears. Would not this ill do well? Well, I see I talk but idly, and you laugh at me.
Northumberland approaches the battlements.
Most mighty prince, my lord Northumberland, what says King Bolingbroke? Will his majesty give Richard leave to live till Richard die? You make a leg, and Bolingbroke says I.
My lord, in the base court he doth attend to speak with you. May it please you to come down.
Down I come like glistering Phaeton, wanting the manage of unruly jades. In the base court, come down. Down court, down king, for night owls shriek where mounting larks should sing.
Exeunt from above, and re-enter King Richard and his attendants below.
Stand all apart, and show fairly duty to his majesty. My gracious lord.
Fair cousin, you debase your princely knee to make the base earth proud with kissing it. Me rather had my heart might feel your love than my unpleased eye see your courtesy. Up, cousin, up, your heart is up, I know. Thus high at least, although your knee be low.
My gracious lord, I come but for mine own.
Your own is yours, and I am yours, and all.
So far be mine, my most redoubted lord, as my true service shall deserve your love.
Cousin, I am too young to be your father, though you are old enough to be my heir. What you will have, I'll give, and willing, too. For do we must what force will have us do. Set on towards London, cousin, is it so?
Yea, my good lord.
Then I must not say no.
Flourish, exeunt. Scene 4, Langley, the Duke of York's garden. Enter Queen with the lady in waiting.
What sport shall we devise here in this garden to drive away the heavy thought of care?
Go then.
Madam will dance.
Dance.
My legs can keep no measure in delight, when my poor heart no measure keeps in grief. Therefore, no dancing, girl, some other sport.
Madam will tell tales.
Of sorrow or of joy?
Of either, madam.
Of neither, girl. For of joy being altogether wanting, it doth remember me the more of sorrow. Or if of grief, being altogether had, it adds more sorrow to my want of joy.
Madam will sing.
'Tis well that thou hast cause, but thou shouldst please me better wouldst thou weep.
Enter a gardener with a garden
But stay,
servant.
here come the gardeners. Let's step into the shadow of these trees. They'll talk of state, for everyone doth so against a change. Woe is forerun with woe.
Queen and lady withdraw.
Go! Bind up yon dangling aprichokes, which, like unruly children, make their sires stoop with oppression of their prodigal weight. Give some supportance to the bending twigs. Go thou, and like an executioner, cut off the heads of two fast-growing sprays that looks too lofty in our commonwealth. All must be even in our government. You thus employed, I will go root away the noisome weeds, which without profit suck the soil's fertility from wholesome flowers.
Why should we, in the compass of the pale, keep law and form in due proportion, when our sea-walled garden, the whole land, is full of weeds? Her fairest flowers choked up, her fruit trees unpruned, her hedges ruined, her knots disordered, and her wholesome herbs swarming with caterpillars.
Hold thy peace. He that hath suffered this disordered spring hath now himself met with the fall of leaf. The weeds which his broad spreading leaves did shelter, that seemed in eating him to hold him up, are plucked up by the root, and all by Bolingbroke. I mean the Earl of Wiltshire, Bushy, GREENE.
What, are they dead?
They are, and Bolingbroke hath seized the wasteful king. Oh, what a pity it is that he hath not so trimmed and dressed his land as we this garden. We at time of year do wound the bark, the skin of our fruit trees, lest being overcrowded in sap and blood, with too much riches it confound itself. Hath he done so to great and growing men, they might have lived to bear, and he to taste their fruits of duty. Superfluous branches we'll lop away, that bearing boughs may live. Had he done so himself, had borne the crown, which waste of idle hours hath quite thrown down.
What, think you then the king shall be deposed?
Depressed he is already, and deposed 'tis doubt he will be. Letters came last night to a dear friend of the good Duke of York's, that tell of bad tidings.
Oh, I am pressed to death through want of speaking.
The queen comes
Why
forward.
dost thou say King Richard is deposed? Dost thou little better thing than earth, divine his downfall? Say where, when, and how camest thou by this ill tidings? Speak, thou wretch!
Pardon me, madam. Little joy I have to breathe the news. Yet what I say is true. King Richard, he is in the mighty hold of Bolingbroke. Their fortunes both are weighed in your lord's scale, is nothing but himself and some few vanities that make him light. But in the balance of great Bolingbroke, besides himself, are all the English peers, and with that odds, he weighs King Richard down. Post you to London, and you will find it so. Now, I speak no more than everyone doth know.
Nimble mischance, that art so light of foot, doth not thy embassage belong to me, and am I last that knows it? Oh, thou thinkest to serve me last, that I may longest keep thy sorrow in my breast. Come, let us go to meet at London, London's king in woe. What, was I born to this, that my sad look should grace the triumph of great Bolingbroke? Gardener, for telling me these news of woe, pray God the plants thou graftest may never grow.
Exeunt.
Well, I never.
Act 4, Scene 1, Westminster Hall. Enter to Parliament Bolingbroke with AUMERLE, Northumberland, Percy, Lord Ross, Sir Stephen Scroop, Carlisle, Abbot of Westminster, with officers bringing in BAGOT.
Now, BAGOT, freely speak thy mind, what thou dost know of noble Gloucester's death, who wrought it with the king, and who performed the bloody office of his timeless end.
Then set before my face the Lord Admiral.
Cousin, stand forth and look upon that man.
AUMERLE steps forward.
My Lord Admiral, I know your daring tongue scorns to unsay what once it hath delivered. In that dead time when Gloucester's death was plotted, I heard you say, is not my arm of length, that reacheth from the restful English court as far as Calais, to mine uncle's head? Amongst much other talk that very time, I heard you say that you had rather refuse the offer of 100,000 crowns than Bolingbroke's return to England, adding withal how blessed this land would be in this your cousin's death.
Princes and noble lords, what answer shall I make to this base man? Shall I so much dishonor my fair sir, in equal terms to give him chastisement? Either I must or have my honor soiled with the attender of his slanderous lips.
He throws down a gauge.
There is my gauge, the manual seal of death that marks thee out for hell. I say thou liest, and will maintain what thou hast said is false in my heart's blood, though being all too base to stain the temper of my knightly sword.
BAGOT, forbear, thou shalt not take it up.
Excepting one, I would he were the best in all this perchance that hath moved me so.
If that thy valor stand on sympathy, there is my gage, AUMERLE, engaged to thine. By that fair sun which grows me where thou standest, I hear thee say, and vauntingly thou spakest it, that thou wert cause of noble Gloucester's death. If thou deniest 20 times, thou liest, and I will turn thy falsehood to thy heart, where it was forged with my rapier's part.
AUMERLE takes up the gauge.
Roast thou damnedest to hell for this.
AUMERLE, thou liest. His honor is as true in this appeal as thou art all unjust, and that thou art so, there I throw my gauge.
He throws down a gauge.
To prove it on thee to the extremest point of mortal breathing, seize it if thou darest.
AUMERLE takes up the gauge.
And if I do not, may my hands rot off and never brandish more revengeful steel over the glittering helmet of my fate. Who sets me else? By heavens, I'll throw it all. I'll have 1,000 spirits in one breast to answer 20,000 such as you.
My Lord Ross, I do remember well the very time AUMERLE and you did talk.
'Tis very true. You were in presence then, and you can witness me. This is true.
as false by heaven as heaven itself is true.
Scroop, thou liest.
Dishonorable boy, that lie shall lie so heavy on my sword that it shall render vengeance and revenge till thou, the lie giver, and that lie do lie in earth as quiet as thy father's skull.
He throws down a gage.
In proof whereof, there is my honor's pawn. Engage it to the trial, if thou darest.
Ross picks up the gage.
How fondly dost thou spur forward a horse? If I dare eat or drink or breathe or live, I dare meet Scroop in the wilderness and spit upon him, whilst I say he lies, and lies, and lies. There is my bond of faith, to tie thee to my strong correction.
He throws down a gage.
As I intend to thrive in this new world, AUMERLE is guilty of my true appeal. Besides, I heard the banished Norfolk say that thou, AUMERLE, did send 2 of thy men to execute the noble Duke at Calais.
That Norfolk's lie. Here, I do throw this down.
He throws down a gage.
If he may be repeated to try his honor.
These differences shall all rest under gage till Norfolk be repealed. And repealed he shall be, and though mine enemy restored again to all his lands and signories, when he is returned against AUMERLE, we will enforce his trial.
Carlisle.
Sorry, here I come. That honorable day shall ne'er be seen. Many a time hath banished Norfolk fought for Jesu Christ in glorious Christian field, streaming the ensign of the Christian cross against black pagans, Turks, and Saracens, and toiled with works of war, retired himself to Italy, and there at Venice gave his body to that pleasant country's earth, and his pure soul unto his captain, Christ, under whose colors he had fought so long.
Why, Bishop, is Norfolk dead?
As truly as I live, my lord.
Sweet peace conduct his sweet soul to the bosom of good old Abraham. Lords, appellants, your differences shall all rest under gage till we assign you to your days of trial.
Enter York, attended.
Great Duke of Lancaster, I come to thee from plume-plucked Richard, who with willing soul adopts the heir, and his high scepter yields to the possession of thy royal hand. Ascend his throne, descending now from him, and long live Henry, 4th of that name.
In God's name, I'll ascend the regal throne.
A marry God forbid. Worst, in this royal presence may I speak, yet best beseeming me to speak the truth. Would God that any in this noble presence were enough noble to be upright judge of noble Richard. Then true noblesse would learn him forbearance from so foul a wrong. What subject can give sentence to his king? And who sits here that is not Richard's subject? And shall the figure of God's majesty, his captain, steward, deputy elect, anointed, crowned, planted many years, be judged by subject and inferior breath? And he himself not present? Oh, forfend in God that a Christian climate, souls refined, should show so heinous, black, obscure a deed. My lord of Hereford here, whom you call king, is a foul traitor to proud Hereford's king. And if you crown him, let me prophesy, the blood of English shall manure the ground, and future ages groan for this foul act. Peace shall go sleep with Turks and infidels, and in this seat of peace and tumultuous wars shall kin with kin, and kind with kind confound. Disorder, horror, fear, and mutiny shall here inhabit, and this land be called the field of Golgotha, and dead men's skulls. Oh, if you raise this house against this house, it will the woefulest division prove that ever fell upon this cursed earth. Prevent it, resist it, let it not be so, lest child's children cry against you woe.
Well have you argued, sir, and for your pains of capital treason we arrest you here. My Lord of Westminster, be it your charge to keep him safely till his day of trial. May it please you, lords, to grant the common suit.
Fetch hither Richard, that in common view he may surrender. So we shall proceed without suspicion.
I will be his conduct.
Exit York.
Lords, you that here are under our arrest, procure your sureties for your days of answer. Little are we beholding to your love, and little looked for at your helping hands.
Re-enter York with King Richard.
Alack, why am I sent for to a king before I have shook off the regal thoughts wherewith I reigned? I hardly yet have learned to insinuate, flatter, bow, and bend my knee. Give sorrow leave a while to tutor me to this submission. And yet I well remember the favors of these men. Were they not mine? Did they not sometime cry, all hail to me? And so Judas did to Christ, but he in 12 found truth in all but one. I in 12,000, none. God save the king. Will no man say amen? Am I both priest and clerk? Well then, amen. God save the king, although I be not he, yet amen if heaven do think him me. To do what service am I sent for hither?
To that office of thine own goodwill, which tired majesty did make thee offer. The resignation of thy state and crown to Henry Bolingbroke.
Give me the crown. Here, cousin, seize the crown. Here, cousin, on this side my hand and on that side thine. Now is this golden crown like a deep well that owes two buckets filling one another, the emptier ever dancing in the air, the other down unseen and full of water. That bucket down and full of tears am I, drinking my griefs whilst you mount up on high.
I thought you had been willing to resign.
My crown I am, but still my griefs are mine. You may my glories in my state depose, but not my griefs. Still am I king of those.
Part of your cares you give me with your crown.
Your cares set up do not pluck my cares down. My care is loss of care by old care done. Your care is gain of care by new care won. The cares I give, I have, though given away. They tend the crown, yet still with me they stay.
Are you contented to resign the crown?
I? No. No. I. But I must nothing be. Therefore, no, no, but I resign to thee. Now, mark me how I will undo of myself. I give this heavy weight from off my head, and this unwieldy scepter from my hand, the pride of kingly sway from out my heart. With mine own tears I wash away my balm. With mine own hands I give away my crown. With mine own tongue deny my sacred state. With mine own breath release all duteous oaths. God, pardon all oaths that are broke to me. God, keep all vows unbroke that swear to thee. Make me that nothing have, with nothing grieved. And thou, with all pleased, thou hast all achieved. Long mayest thou live in Richard's seat to sit, and soon lie Richard in an earthy pit. God save King Henry, unkinged Richard says, and send him many years of sunshine days. What more remains?
No more, but that you read these accusations and these grievous crimes committed by your person and your followers against the state and profit of this land, that by confessing them, the souls of men may deem that you are worthily deposed.
Must I do so? And must I rabble out my weaved up follies? Gentle Northumberland, if thy offences were upon record, would it not shame thee in so fair a troop to read a lecture of them? If thou wouldst, there shouldst thou find one heinous article containing the deposing of a king and cracking the strong warrant of an oath, marked with a blot damned in the book of heaven. Nay, all of you that stand and look upon me, whilst at my wretchedness doth bait myself, though some of you, with Pilate, wash your hands, showing an outward pity, yet you pilots have here delivered me to my sour cross, and water cannot wash away your sin.
My lord, dispatch. Read all these articles.
Mine eyes are full of tears, I cannot see, and yet salt water blinds them not so much, but they can see a sort of traitors here. Nay, if I turn mine eyes upon myself, I find myself a traitor with the rest. For I have given here my soul's consent to undeck the pompous body of a king, made glory base and sovereignty a slave, proud majesty a subject, state a peasant.
My lord!
No lord of thine, thou haut insulting man, nor no man's lord. I have no name, no title, no, not that name was given me at the font, but 'tis usurped. Alack, the heavy day that I have worn so many winters out, and know not now what name to call myself. Oh, that I were a mockery king of snow, standing before the son of Bolingbroke to melt myself away in water drops. Oh, good king, great king, and yet not greatly good. And if my word be sterling yet in England, let it command a Mira hither straight, that it may show me what a face I have, since it is bankrupt of his majesty.
Go, some of you, and fetch a looking glass.
Read all this paper while the glass doth come.
Fiend that torments me ere I come to hell.
Urge it no more, my lord Northumberland.
The Commons will not then be satisfied.
They shall be satisfied. I'll read enough when I do see the very book indeed when all my sins are writ, and that's myself. Give me the glass, and therein will I read. Oh. Oh. No deeper wrinkles yet. Hath sorrow struck so many blows upon this face of mine, and made no deeper wounds? Oh, flattering glass, like to my followers in prosperity, thou dost beguile me. Was this face the face that every day under his household roof did keep 10,000 men? Was this the face that like the sun did make beholders wink? Was this the face that faced so many follies, and was at last outfaced by Bolingbroke? Ah, a brittle glory shineth in this face, as brittle as the glory is the face. There it is, cracked in 100 shivers. Mark, silent king, the moral of this sport. How soon my sorrow hath destroyed my face.
The shadow of your sorrow hath destroyed the shadow of your face.
And I thank thee, king, for thy great bounty, that not only gives to me cause to wail, but teachest me the way how to lament the cause. I'll beg one boon, and then be gone, and trouble you no more. Shall I obtain it?
Name it, fair cousin.
Fair cousin? Oh, I am greater than a king, for when I was a king, my flatterers were then but subjects. Being now a subject, I have a king here to my flatterer. Being so great, I have no need to beg. Give me leave to go.
Whither?
Whither you will, so I were from your sights.
Go, some of you. Convey him to the tower.
Oh, good. Convey? Conveyors are you all that rise thus nimbly by a true king's fall.
Exeunt King Richard II with the guards.
On Wednesday next, we solemnly set down our coronation. Lords, prepare yourselves.
Exeunt except Carlisle, the abbot of Westminster, and AUMERLE.
A woeful pageant have we here beheld.
The woes to come, the children yet unborn, shall feel this day as sharp to them as thorn.
You, holy clergymen, is there no plot to rid this realm of this pernicious blot?
My lord, before I feebly speak my mind herein, you shall not only take the sacrament to bury mine intents, but also to effect whatever I shall happen to devise. I see your brows are full of discontent, your hearts of sorrow, and your eyes of tears. Come home with me to supper. I'll lay a plot, shall show us all a merry day.
Exeunt. Act 5, Scene 1, London. A street leading to the Tower. Enter Queen with her lady in waiting.
This way the king will come. This is the way to Julius Caesar's ill-erected tower, to whose flint bosom my condemned lord is doomed a prisoner by proud Bolingbroke. Here let us rest, if this rebellious earth have any resting for her true king's queen. But soft, but see, or rather do not see, my fair rose wither, yet look up, behold, that you in pity may dissolve to dew and wash him fresh again with true love tears. Ah, thou, the model where old Troy did stand, thou map of honor, thou rich King Richard's tomb, and not King Richard, thou most beauteous inn, why should hard-favored grief be lodged in thee, when triumph is becoming an alehouse guest?
Joy not with grief, fair woman, do not so, to make my end too sudden. Learn, good soul, to think our former state a happy dream, from which awaked the truth of what we are shows us but this. I am sworn brother sweet to grim necessity, and he and I will keep a league till death. Hie thee to France, and cloister thee in some religious house. Our holy lives must win a new world's crown, which our profane hours here have stricken down.
What? Is my Richard both in shape and mind transformed and weakened? Has Bolingbroke deposed thine intellect? Hath he been in thy heart? The lion dying trusteth forth his paw and wounds the earth, if nothing else, with rage to be o'erpowered. And wilt thou, pupil-like, take thy correction, mildly kiss the rod, and fawn on rage with base humility, which art a lion and a king of beasts?
King of beasts indeed. If aught but beasts, I had been still a happy king of men. Good sometime, queen, prepare thee hence for France. Think I am dead, and that even here thou takest as from my deathbed thy last living leave. In winter's tedious nights sit by the fire with good old folks, and let them tell thee tales of woeful ages long ago betid. And ere thou bid good night to quiet their griefs, tell thou the lamentable tale of me, and send the hearers weeping to their beds. For why? The senseless brands will sympathize the heavy accent of thy moving tongue, and in compassion weep the fire out. And some will mourn in ashes, some coal black for the deposing of a rightful king.
Enter Northumberland and others. Enter Northumberland and others.
My guilt be on my head, and there an end. Take leave in part, for you
No.
must. What?
No.
Oh,
55,
sorry.
right above 55.
oh, I had a misprint here. Okay, sorry. My lord, the mind of Bolingbroke is changed. You must to Pomfret, not unto the tower, and madam, there is order ta'en for you with all swift speed. You must away to France.
Northumberland, thou ladder wherewithal the mounting Bolingbroke ascends my throne. The time shall not be many hours of age, more than it is ere foul sin gathering head shall break into corruption. Thou shalt think, though he divide the realm and give thee half, it is too little, helping him to all. He shall think that thou, which knowest the way to plant unrightful kings, wilt know again, being ne'er so little urged another way, to pluck him headlong from the usurped throne. The love of wicked men converts to fear, that fear to hate, and hate turns one or both to worthy danger and deserved death.
My guilt be on my head, and there an end. Take leave and part, for you must part forthwith.
Doubly divorced. Bad men, you violate a twofold marriage, twixt my crown and me, and then twixt me and my married wife. Oh, let me unkiss the oath twixt thee and me, and yet not so, for with a kiss was made. Oh, part us, Northumberland, I toward the north, where shivering cold and sickness pines the clime. My wife to France, from whence set forth in pomp, she came adorned hither like sweet May, sent back like hollow mass or shortest of day.
And must we be divided? Must we part?
Aye, hand from hand, my love, and heart from heart.
Banish us both, and send the king with me.
Ah, that was some love, but little policy.
Then whither he goes, thither let me go.
So two together weeping make one woe? Weep thou for me in France, I for thee here. Better far off than near, be near the near. Go, count thy way with sighs, I mine with groans.
So longest way shall have the longest moans.
Twice for one step I'll groan, the way being short, and piece the way out with a heavy heart. Come, come, in wooing sorrow, let's be brief, since wedding it there is such length in grief. One kiss shall stop our mouths and dumbly part. Thus give I mine, and thus take I thy heart. Oh, we make woe wanton with this fond delay. One more, adieu, the rest let sorrow say.
Exeunt. Scene 2, the Duke of York's palace. Enter Duke of York and Duchess of York.
My lord, you told me you would tell the rest, when weeping made you break the story off of our two cousins coming into London.
Where did I leave?
At that sad stop, my lord, where rude misgoverned hands from windows' tops threw dust and rubbish on the King Richard's head.
Then, as I said, the Duke, great Bolingbroke, mounted upon a hot and fiery steed, which his aspiring rider seemed to know, with slow but stately pace kept on his course, whilst all tongues cried, God save thee, Bolingbroke! You would have thought the very windows spake. So many greedy looks of young and old through casements darted their desiring eyes upon his visage, and that all the walls with painted imagery said at once, Jesu preserve thee, welcome Bolingbroke! Whilst he from the one side to the other turning, bespake them thus, I thank you, countrymen, and thus still doing, thus he passed along.
Alack, poor Richard, where rode he the whilst?
As in a theatre the eyes of men, after a well-graced actor leaves the stage, are idly bent on him that enters next. Thinking his prattle being tedious, even so were with much more contempt men's eyes did scowl on gentle Richard. No man cried, God save him! No joyful tongue gave him his welcome home, but dust was thrown upon his sacred head, which with such gentle sorrow he shook off, his face still combating with tears and smile the badges of his grief and patience, that had not God, or some strong purpose, steel the hearts of men, they must perforce have melted, and barbarism itself hath pitied him, but heaven hath a hand in these events. To whose high will we bound our calm contents, to Bolingbroke are we sworn subjects now, whose state and horror eye for eye allow.
Here comes my son, O'Meara.
AUMERLE that was, but that is lost for being Richard's friend. And madam, you must call him Rutland now. I am in Parliament pledge for his truth and lasting fealty to the new-made king.
Welcome, my son. Who are the violets now that strew the green lap of the new-come spring?
Madam, I know not, nor I greatly care not. God knows I had it as life before, none as one.
Well, fare you well in this new spring of time, lest you be cropped before you come to prime. What news from Oxford? Do these jousts and triumphs hold?
For aught I know, my lord, they do.
You will be there, I know.
If God prevents it not, I purpose so.
What seal is that hangs without thy bosom? Yea, look'st thou pale? Let me see the writing.
My lord, 'tis nothing.
No matter then, who see it. I will be satisfied. Let me see the writing.
I do beseech you, your grace, to pardon me. It is a matter of small consequence, for which some reason I would not have seen.
Which of some reason, sir? I mean to see. I fear.
What should you fear? 'Tis nothing but some bond that he is entered into for gay apparel against the triumph day.
Bound to himself? What dost he with a bond that he is bound to? Wife, thou art a fool. Boy, let me see the writing.
I do beseech you pardon me. I may not show it.
I will be satisfied. Let me see it, I say. Treason. Foul treason. Villain. Traitor. Slave.
What is the matter, my lord?
God, for his mercy, what treachery is here?
Why? What is it, my lord?
Give me my boots. I say, saddle my horse. Now, by my honor, by my life, by my troth, I will impeach the villain.
What is the matter?
Peace, foolish woman.
I will not peace. What is the matter, O'Meara?
Good mother, be content. It is no more than my poor life must answer.
Thy life answer?
Bring me my boots. I will undo the king. Give me my boots, I say.
Why, York, what wilt thou do? Wilt thou not hide the trespass of thine own? Have we more sons, or are we like to have? Is not my teeming date drunk up with time? And will thou pluck my fair son from mine age, and rob me of a happy mother's name? Is not he like thee? Is he not thine own?
Thou fond mad woman, wilt thou conceal this dark conspiracy? A dozen of them here have taken the sacrament and interchangeably set down their hands to kill the King of Oxford.
He shall be none. We'll keep him here. Then what is that to him?
Away, fond woman. Were he 20 times my son, I would impeach him.
Hadst thou groaned for him, as I have done, thou wouldst be more pitiful. But now I know thou mind, thou dost suspect that I have been disloyal to thy bed, and that he is a bastard, not thy son. Sweet York, sweet husband, be not of that mind. He is as like thee as a man may be, not like to me or any of my kin, and yet I love him.
Make way, unruly woman.
After, AUMERLE, mount thee upon his horse, spur post, and get before him to the king, and beg thy pardon ere he do accuse thee. I'll not be long behind. Though I be old, I doubt not but to ride as fast as York, and never will I rise up from the ground till Bolingbroke have pardoned thee. Away, be gone.
Scene 3, a royal palace. Enter Bolingbroke, talking to attending lords.
Can no man tell me of my unthrifty son? 'Tis full 3 months since I did see him last. If any plague hang over us, 'tis he. I would to God, my lords, he might be found. Inquire at London amongst the taverns there. For there they say he daily doth frequent with unrestrained, loose companions. Even such they say as stand in narrow lanes and beat our watch and rob our passengers, while he, young wanton and effeminate boy, takes on the point of honor to support so desolate a crew, as desolate as desperate, yet through both I see come sparks of better hope, which elder years may happily bring forth. But who comes here? What means our cousin that stares and looks so wildly?
God save your grace. I do beseech your majesty to have some conference with your grace alone.
Withdraw yourselves and leave us here alone.
Exit attending lords.
What is the matter with our cousin now?
Forever may my knees grow to the earth, my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, within my mouth, unless a pardon ere I rise or speak.
Intended or committed was this fault? If on the first, how heinous error it be to win thy afterlove, I pardon thee.
Then give me leave that I may turn the key, that no man enter till my tale be done.
Have thy desire.
AUMERLE locks the door. York arrives and begins knocking.
Beware! Look to thyself, thou hast a traitor in thy presence.
Villain, I'll make thee safe.
Bolingbroke draws his sword.
Stay thy revengeful hand, thou hast no cause to fear.
Open the door. Secure, wholeheartedly king, shall I for love speak treason to thy face? Open the door, or I will break it open.
Bolingbroke opens the door. Enter York.
What is the matter, uncle? Speak, recover breath. Tell us how near is danger, that we may arm us to encounter it.
York gives Bolingbroke the paper from AUMERLE.
Peruse this writing here, and thou shalt know the treason that my haste forbids me show.
Remember, as thou readest thy promise pass, I do repent me. Read not my name there. My heart is not confederate with my lord, with my hand.
It was, villain, ere this hand did set it down. I tore it from the traitor's bosom, king. Fear and not love begets his pestilence. Forget to pity him, lest they pretty prove a serpent that will sting thee to the heart.
Oh, heinous, strong, and bold conspiracy. O loyal father of a treacherous son, thou sheer, immaculate, and silver fountain, from when this stream, through muddy passages, hath held his current and defiled himself. Thy overflow of good converts to bad, and thy abundant goodness shall excuse this deadly blot in thy digressing son.
So shall my virtue be his vices bawd, and he shall spend mine honor with his shame. As thriftless sons their scaping father's gold, mine honor lives with his dishonor dies. For my shamed life in his dishonor lies. Thou kill'st me in his life, giving him breath. The traitor lives, the true man's put to death.
What ho, my liege, for God's sake, let me in.
What shrill voice suppliant makes this eager cry?
A woman, and thou, aunt, great king, 'tis I. Speak with me, pity me, open the door. A beggar begs that never begged before.
Our scene is altered from a serious thing, and now changed to the beggar and the king. My dangerous cousin, let your mother in. I know she has come to pray for your foul sin.
AUMERLE opens the door, enter Duchess of York, and kneels.
Thou do pardon whatsoever pray, more sins for this forgiveness prosper may. This fester joint cut off, the rest sound, this let alone will all the rest confound.
O king, believe not this hard-hearted man. Love, loving not itself, none other can.
Thou frantic woman, wast doubt thou make here? Shall thy old dugs once more a traitor's rear?
Sweet York, be patient. Hear me, gentle liege.
Rise up, good aunt.
Not yet. I thee beseech. Forever will I walk upon my knees, and never see day that the happy sees, till thou give joy, until thou bind me joy by pardoning Rutledge, my transgressing boy.
Unto my mother's prayers I bend my knee.
York.
Against them both my true joints bended be. It may thy thrive if thou grant any grace.
Pleads he in earnest? Look upon his face. His eyes do drop no tears. His prayers are in jest. His words come from his mouth, ours from our breast. He prays but faintly and would be denied. We pray with heart and soul and all beside. His weary joints would gladly rise, I know. Our knees shall kneel till to the ground they grow. His prayers are full of false hypocrisy, ours of true zeal and deep integrity. Our prayers do outpray his, then let them have that mercy which true prayer ought to have.
Good aunt, stand up.
Nay, do not say, stand up. Say pardon first, and afterwards stand up. And if I were thy nurse, thy tongue to teach, pardon should be the first word of thy speech. I never longed to hear a word till now. Say pardon, king, let pity teach thee how. The word is short, but not so short as sweet. No word like pardon for kings' mouths so meet.
Good aunt, stand up.
I do not sue to stand. Pardon is all the suit I have in hand.
I pardon him as God shall pardon me. With all my heart, I pardon him.
Oh, happy vantage of a kneeling knee, a God on earth thou art.
But for our trusty brother-in-law and the abbot, with all the rest of that consorted crew, destruction straight shall dog them at the heels. Good uncle, help to order several powers to Oxford, or wherever these traitors are. They shall not live within this world, I swear. But I will have them, if I once know where. Uncle, farewell, and cousin, adieu. Your mother well hath prayed, and prove you true.
Come, my own son, I pray God make thee new.
Exeunt. Scene 4 the same. Enter Willoughby and Willoughby's servant.
Didst thou not mark the king, what words he spake? Have I no friend will rid me of this living fear? Have I no friend, quoth he. He spake it twice, and urged it twice together, did he not?
He did.
And speaking it, he wistly looked on me, and who should say, I would thou wert the man that would divorce this terror from my heart, meaning the king at Pomfret. Come, let's go. I am the king's friend, and will rid his foe.
Exeunt. Scene 5 Pomfret Castle. Enter King Richard.
I have been studying how I may compare this prison where I live unto the world. And for because the world is populous and here is not a soul but myself, I cannot do it. Yet I'll hammer it out. My brain, I'll prove the female to my soul the father. And these two beget a generation of still breeding thoughts. And these same thoughts people this little world in humors like the people of this world. For no thought is contented, the better sort, as thoughts of things divine are intermixed with scruples, and do set the word itself against the word, as thus, come, little ones. And then again, it is as hard to come as for a camel to thread the postern of a small needle's eye. Thoughts tending to ambition, they do plot unlikely wonders. How these vain, weak nails may tear a passage through the flinty ribs of this hard world, my ragged prison walls. And for they cannot die in their own pride, tending to content themselves, thoughts tending to flatter themselves that they are not the first of fortune's slaves, nor shall not be the last, like silly beggars who, sitting in the stocks, refuge their shame that many have and others must sit there. And in this thought they find a kind of ease, bearing their own misfortunes on the back of such as have before endured the like. Thus play I, in one person, many people, and none contented. Sometimes am I king, then treasons make me wish myself a beggar, and so I am. Then crushing penury persuades me I was better when a king. Then am I kinged again, and by think that I am unkinged by Bolingbroke, and straight am nothing. But whate'er I be, nor I nor any man that but man is, with nothing shall be pleased till he be eased with being nothing. Music do I hear? Oh, keep time. How sour sweet music is when time is broken, no proportion kept. And so is it in the music of men's lives. And here have I the daintiness of ear to check time broke in a disordered string, but for the concord of my state in time had not an ear to hear my true time broke. I wasted time, and now doth time waste me. For now hath time made me his numbering clock. My thoughts are minutes, and with sighs they jar their watches on unto mine eyes, the outward watch, whereto my finger, like a dial's point, is pointing still and cleansing them from tears. Now, sir, the sound that tells what hour it is are clamorous groans which strike upon my heart, which is the bell. So, sighs and tears and groans show minutes, times, and hours. But my time runs posting on in Bolingbroke's proud joy, while I stand fooling here at his jack of the clock. This music mads me. Let it sound no more. Though it would have helped madmen to their wits, in me it seems, it will make wise men mad. Yet blessing on his heart that gives it me, for it is a sign of love. And love to Richard is a strange brooch in this all hating world.
My lord, will it please you to fall to?
Taste of it first, as thou art wont to do.
Oh, my lord, I dare not. The Lord Willoughby, who came lately from the king, commands the contrary.
The devil take Henry Lancaster, and the patience is stale, and I am weary of it.
Beats the jailer.
Help! Help! Help!
Enter the murderers Willoughby and servants armed.
Oh no, what means death in this rude assault? Villain, thy own hand yields thy death's instrument.
Richard wrestles with an axe from the nearest assailant and kills him with it.
Go thou into another room in hell.
He kills another, then Willoughby strikes him down.
Now that hand shall burn in never quenching fire, that staggers thus my person. Lord, thy fierce hand hath with the king's blood stained the king's own land. Mount, mount, my soul, thy seat is up on high, whilst my gross flesh sinks downward, here to die.
King Richard dies.
As full of valor as of royal blood, both have I spilled. Oh, would the deed were good! For now the devil that told me I did well says that this deed is chronicled in hell. This dead king to the living king I'll bear. Take hence the rest and give them burial here.
Exeunt with the bodies. Scene 6, Windsor Castle. Flourish. Enter Bolingbroke, York, with other lords and attendants.
King Uncle York, the latest news we hear is that the rebels have consumed with fire our town of Seceder in Gloucestershire, but whether they be taken or slain, we hear not. Welcome, my lord. What is the news?
First, to thy sacred state wish I all happiness. The next news is I have to London sent the heads of Oxford, Salisbury, Blunt, and Kent. The manner of their taking may appear at large discoursed in this paper here.
He gives Bolingbroke a paper.
We thank thee, gentle Percy, for thy pains, and to thy worth will add right worthy gains.
Enter Lord Ross.
Oh. My lord, I have from Oxford sent to London the heads of Brocas and Sir Bennet Seely, two of the dangerous consorted traitors that sought at Oxford thy dire overthrow.
Thy pains, Lord Ross, shall not be forgot. Right noble is thy merit, well I wot.
Enter Percy and Bishop of Carlisle.
The grand conspirator, Abbot of Westminster, with clog of conscience and sour melancholy, hath yielded up his body to the grave. But here is Carlisle living to abide thy kingly doom and sentence of his pride.
Carlisle, this is your doom. Choose out some secret place, some reverend room, more than thou hast, and with it joy thy life. So as thou livest in peace, die free from strife. For through mine enemy thou hast ever been, high sparks of honor in thee have I seen.
Enter Willoughby with persons bearing a coffin.
Great King, within this coffin I present thy buried fear. Herein all breathless lies the mightiest of thy greatest enemies, Richard of Bordeaux, by me hither brought.
Sir, I thank thee not, for thou hast wrought a deed of slander with thy fatal hand upon my head and all this famous land.
From your own mouth, my lord, did I this deed.
They love not poison that do poison need, nor I do thee. Though I did wish him dead, I hate the murderer, love him murdered. The guilt of conscience take thou for thy labor, but neither my good word nor princely favor with Kane go wander through shades of night, and never show thy head by day nor light. Lords, I protest my soul is full of woe, that blood should sprinkle me to make me grow. Come mourn with me for that I do lament, and put on sullen black incontinent. I'll make a voyage to the Holy Land to wash this blood off my guilty hand.
Serving men lift the coffin and carry it out.
March sadly after, grace my mornings here in weeping after this untimely bier.
Exeunt. End of play.
I love that. I love that so much.